So Rabbi Yehuda Halevi was born in Spain.
Yeah.
He died somewhere in the Near East. We're not sure. We know that he left Spain for Egypt and then was going to Eretz Israel.
Right.
And we lose track of him. He died, I think, around 1075. He was probably one of the greatest poets that the Jewish people ever produced outside of David Amel of Psalms. There were 4 great poets in the what is called the medieval period, the Middle Ages. He is probably one of the greatest. Between 4 of them, it really depends on how you connect to them. And we know that he studied philosophy early, and he rejected it, and he wrote a systematic view of Judaism in order to defend Judaism from attacks from 4 different groups: philosophers, Karaites, which we're going to get to,
Except the oral, right?
Karaites, Christians, and Muslims. Those are the 4 categories. And so he created a fictional situation where there's a king who has a dream that repeats itself, and then he brings different people to argue for different positions. Philosopher comes first because it is the greatest attack to Judaism. The philosopher is always in the background, and we deal with it all the time, at least in my reading. Christianity and Islam are summarily executed, right? He sort of refutes them very quickly. And most of the book is about Judaism, how to understand Judaism in a systematic way. And so he's presenting us Judaism as we would present it to somebody who doesn't know anything about Judaism. That's where we are.
It's
So-
really fictional. It wasn't actually the Khazars, like the nobility that converted to Judaism.
It is based on historical development, which is being contested currently among some historians, that they say it never happened, it did happen. For our purposes, it doesn't really matter whether it did or didn't. That's why I use fictional. But according to most of the sources in this period, they believed that there was a king named Joseph that converted to Judaism along with his court, and the rest of the people converted, and for a number of generations until they were conquered probably by the Russians, there was a Jewish kingdom. Now the question, and this will happen around the 8th century, 7th and 9th century, so by the time we get to the 12th century, it's probably, they're all gone. You can read about this if you look at more at Chazdai ibn Shaput, who's a figure that is much earlier, who was an assistant at the court of one of the Muslim rulers that had letters going to the Khazars and back. So you can look that up on Wikipedia. All right, here we go.
Never heard a teacher say that.
Listen, people say, in the university say, don't use Wikipedia because you don't know who wrote. But if you know your area well, then you can use it because you can evaluate whether it's true or not if you know this. You don't have the tools to do that, but I do.
Okay.
So
we won.
So don't. All right, so we are almost done with this part. But remember, the question was, okay, the king says to the rabbi, you're telling me that God took you out of Egypt and did all these wonderful things. Fine, I believe you. But you're going to have to prove to me how God speaks to human beings. So the Kuzari says, human beings, God has a connection to every being, every creature. And he explains this through matter and form. Then he gets to explaining how Torah Misinai was given. And we are now looking at, we were talking about last time, the voice, right? How they experience God. And says, the Kuzari, he says that they heard divine speech, and Moshe Rabbeinu fulfilled God's commandment and built an Aron HaKodesh, right? He built an ark to put the Torah in, and the Mishkan, and the children of Israel, Bnei Israel, had the Mishkan and Nevuah is prophecy, for 900 years. Just think about this. 900 years they had the ark and the Mishkan and prophecy that Moshe Rabbeinu instituted. For over 900 years, there was somebody who you went to and you could ask him, like, what does God want me to do? And he would tell you, I want you to get a haircut and join the Hare Krishnas. Obviously not. Kidding, did not happen. But you could ask the Navi. You can ask the Navi what to do in whatever situation, and the Navi would tell you. You had someone to go to. Today, if you have a question, should I put this money in a CD in the bank, or should I buy real estate, or maybe invest in a horse race? Can you ask a Navi?
Ask a Kabbalist.
Okay. I knew a Sephardi. You ask this question to a Sephardi, you would get a Sephardi answer. Okay, so he says, 900 years until Nebuchadnezzar, the people had prophecy and the ark. So the king scratches his head. I'm adding stage directions to this, obviously. So he scratches his head and he says, interesting. So when I hear you talking about God speaking to the multitude, to you all, and that he wrote these tablets for you, then I guess it makes sense why you attribute God corporeality. Do you know what corporeality means? Bueller?
Non-reality?
Corporeality comes from the Latin word corpus, which means body. So corporeality means that we attribute God human qualities, physical characteristics, right? There's two philosophical terms that are worth noting if you're interested. One is called anthropomorphism, and the other one is anthropopathism. Big word, yeah, you're right. Anthropomorphism is that we give God human form, from the Greek word morphos. Whereas anthropopathism means we attribute God human pathos, feelings, emotions. Pathism.
Cool.
Yeah, my Greek teacher would be very happy with me. Because I remember the first test, she gave it to me, she gave me the test, I looked at it and I said, it's all Greek to me. She didn't like that joke. I thought it was very funny. I thought I was witty. But she didn't, because I guess she heard it every semester. Some joker says, it's all Greek to me. So, and I was mad at my Arabic teacher, because I said to him, look, we had to learn the Greek alphabet in 24 hours. That was the deal. We spent 3 weeks learning the Arabic alphabet, which drove me nuts. It's like, come on, let's go. They can't figure out the letters, then cut them out of class. Took forever.
Arabic has nothing to do with Torah.
The Rambam certainly thought it did. He wrote in Arabic. This book was written in Arabic.
Yeah, but I'm sure the reason that's not why, because they thought it's related.
No, it's not because it's related.
So it's not related.
It's not. But there are, if you look carefully enough, in the Ibn Ezra, and in Rashi sometimes, and the Rabbi David Kimchi, they will tell you this word is similar to the Arabic word, and they give you the Arabic, and they learn the Arabic. Right, the famous Ibn Ezra it says, Bereshit bara Elokim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. Right, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. And then it says, V'haaretz hayta. Says the Ibn Ezra, the vav there is like a fa in Arabic. The Kuzari says, when I hear you talking about God's connection to you, and giving you the luchos, then it's very clear why we consider you to be people who believe in anthropomorphism. That is, that you attribute qualities of human beings to God. And he says, and I can't blame you for doing this. Why? Because you had such a vision of God, and your description of God are based upon your vision. So therefore, I can't blame you for picturing God in a human form, even though it makes no rational sense. That is to say, you are holding irrational concepts, but I can't blame you for being irrational because that's what you've experienced. So the rabbi now is going to blow a gasket. He's going to go, what? You missed what I'm talking about. The rabbi says, God forbid that we're going to say that what the Torah teaches, our intellect pushes away. It's a very, very important message in the Kuzari. God forbid that we should hold the position that the Torah says X, even though it's irrational to believe so. Torah and rationality go together. So he says, the beginning of the Ten Commandments is a commandment by God that we believe Him. What are the Ten Commandments? What's the first one? Anochi. Anochi Hashem Elokecha. And what's the second one? That not to worship other gods like me and not to make graven images.
So if somebody like even makes a cartoon
Of?
like God, is that going against the second commandment?
It sounds like it. What do you want to draw him as?
I don't know, but I'm just saying like in movies
What?
and stuff.
Morgan Freeman.
Oh, that's for sure.
Yeah, like the director, like the writer of that movie, like the whole everybody involved. Are they like would they halakhically be like in trouble?
I don't know. But certainly the idea of God appearing as a human being, that's a Christian notion. Because God could not appear as a human being, would not appear as a human being.
How do they get around the second commandment?
Who get, they?
Yeah.
That's a different yeshiva. That's a different yeshiva. I don't recommend you to go to that shir.
You mean a monastery?
Yeah, they have their own. Yeah, I'm not gonna, put down another. That's what that's theirs. I don't know. They could say, look, we don't create images of the Father, but we can make images of the Son. They can make a chiluk. But I don't know.
Michelangelo.
Yeah.
Done for.
No, wait, that wasn't Michelangelo.
Not for them. That's Leonardo da Vinci, isn't it? No, it's Michelangelo. Okay. So he says we have a commandment that says we shouldn't do that. Not to make images or statues. And he says, V'chlalo shel davar mehakshim. That is, they are examples of a general commandment not to corporealize God, not to make God into a geshem. Geshem is a body. Okay, ask Rabbi Greenblatt about geshem. It's raining outside. Geshem is rain, but also it means body. So the question is why? So it's an interesting development. What?
It's a body of water.
It's the corporeality of the possibility. But in Arabic, jism means goof. In Arabic, jism, body. So the question is the medieval Hebrew word geshem comes from rain, comes from... I'll give him a headache. Okay. So he says, איך לא נרוממהו מהגשמות, ואנחנו מרוממים קצת מבריאותיו מהגשמות. He says, if you're going to tell me that you want to accuse us of anthropomorphizing God, he says, how could you say that when we don't anthropomorphize aspects that God created? It's a kal v'chomer. Do you know what a kal v'chomer is?
Lenient to light heavy.
Light to heavy. Right? He says, since we don't corporealize or anthropomorphize something that God created, you want us to make God into a body? We don't even do it to creatures that He created. Like what? Give me an example of an entity that God created in the world that God did not make, that we don't make corporeal. Think about it.
Human statues? Gravity.
Gravity. That, I don't know that it's something that you can point to.
Right.
Because that could be a concept or an effect, but not, it's a principle. So principles are in your mind. They're not physical.
Fire.
Fire? There's fire. You could see fire.
Thoughts?
Soul.
Soul.
Soul. Do you have a soul? Everybody says we have a soul.
Not atheists.
What? They don't have a soul.
They won't.
Whether they acknowledge or not, that's a different, it's based on, it's not a question of atheism. It's a question if a person is a materialist or not. If a person says everything that exists in the universe is made of matter, period. So either it's material or it's not non-existent. Okay. The Kuzari is living in a world that there are materialists and there are what we call realists. Realists are people who believe in the existence of non-material entities. They're called realists, which you think they shouldn't. They'd be called idealists, right? It goes back to Plato, to the writings of Plato. But he says, the Kuzari says, that the soul, the rational soul that is in human beings, is truly in us. כי כאשר ידבר עמנו, so that when we speak, when we think, when we behave, right? He says that when Moshe Rabbeinu spoke and did all these things, these are tools to Moshe Rabbeinu, right? And Moshe nefesh medaberet, makeret enana geshem ve'ena nigbelet b'makom ve'lo yatzar mimena makom. And he says that you could see that the soul speaks and has an awareness, but is not a body. And it's not bound in place, and there is no place that is sort of it resides. And it is, he says, it's one of the forms that all creatures have. So this is a little different, a little deep, because we get back to the idea of matter and form. That according to the standard scientific position of the 12th century, everything is made up of two parts, matter and form. And they're inseparable. Matter is the material, but there's an aspect that is not material. So he says, we believe, like everybody else, that there's matter and form. And form was created by God. So you want to accuse us, people who believe the existence of non-corporeal entities will corporealize God? That we're not going to do. How many people did I lose? Because I got to go get the flashlight and bring you guys back. You with me?
No. Spaced out. Thinking about the black fire.
All right. So think of it as this. We talked about this. We have a pine cone. A pine cone has the form of what? A pine cone. It has the material of pine cone. But it also has the potential form of a pine tree. It's there. The potentiality of a pine cone is to become what? A pine tree. How does it go from a pine cone to a pine tree? It grows?
It's fertilized and then it grows.
So you need, the material component requires preparation. That's what the lashon, the language that are used. You need heat. You need moisture. You need all sorts of things for the seeds to actually begin to rot. Right? You need the casing to begin to rot in order for what's inside to begin to, I think the proper nomenclature is sprout. I don't know if that's only in plants, but not in trees. I don't know. I'm not a botanist. So, what?
Fertilization.
No, fertilization is something fertilized. It's already fertilized.
Oh, you mean the first place where the coating gets...
Yeah. So now it begins to grow, and it changes its form. Changes the form from a pine cone to a seedling. And it still has the potentiality of becoming a pine cone, a pine tree, but it sort of changes. So as the material component changes, its form changes. But form doesn't mean what its physical look is. It's not its image, but it's what its essence is. What is its essence? And the same thing with us. We have a form that first we have the form of a baby, that potentially we're going to have the form of a kid, which potentially we're going to have a form of an adult. And as our material component is ready to receive the next form, it receives the next form.
So what's that?
To become the essence of who you are, which is an adult human being.
So our essence is an adult, and the essence of a pine cone is a tree.
It's a tree, yeah. Yeah. And what makes you who you are is not your body, but your neshama, your soul. Correct?
Wouldn't
Is
our
that the mind?
Yeah. Yeah. Because if your soul leaves you, when you're 120 and the soul leaves, are you no longer Ishai? What happened? Like, let's imagine the second the soul leaves the body is laying on the bed, the soul leaves. Did you change?
Yeah,
What changed?
change.
Your toes weren't clipped. Your payas is still there. Your teeth, everything. Your heart's still there.
The soul from the body isn't considered to change.
But the question is the physicality. But we see the physicality, that is the matter and form, are separate. What form do you have now?
Non-physical.
You have the form of a corpse. Right?
I thought we were saying, okay, so
So then I'm saying you as
okay.
you're like laying there.
Oh wait, all you're trying to do is say that there's a form and there's the object, like this table.
It has the form of a table.
It has the form of...
Not the shape, the form of a table. What is the form of a table? What all tables have in common.
Right.
So what do tables have in common?
Legs and a top.
Legs and a top. Or a one leg, right? You have some tables with one that has a particular use. It's not anything. Right? So that is the form.
It's kind of like Plato, right? You said that.
Yeah, Aristotle. This is Aristotelian. You have to remember that all this stays in science until the modern period. Right? Aristotle is, I had at NYU a seminar on Aristotle and contemporary genetic theory. So that we were still trying to figure out, can the Aristotelian theory still work with Aristotle? And Maskana, the conclusion was, yes, it could. You just need to make some changes, but very minor ones. So the theory still holds.
What were you trying to say?
So he's saying that since you have form, and then we don't believe that form is material, and since everything has form, like the soul, so we believe that there are lots of non-corporeal, non-physical beings in the universe. Chas v'shalom, we would believe that God is a body.
So we believe in forms.
What's this?
In the idea of things.
What's this?
Not the actual physical.
No, but what's this mean?
Quote unquote.
Quote unquote. And okay, so what does that mean to do?
No,
I thought you were trying to sort of.
I'm just trying to. Never mind. Don't look into it.
So according to the Kuzari, He says that since we follow the latest scientific model of the existence of form, and form is non-corporeal, don't accuse us of thinking of God in bodily terms. Because we think of lots of things in non-bodily terms. You assume that, he's telling the king, you assume that we're going to make this grievous mistake. But on two counts, you shouldn't make that assumption. One, because, like Aaron pointed out, we have a commandment in the Torah that says, no images. And two, we believe, we accept the scientific model that says there's matter and form. Form doesn't have physical dimensions. That's the idea.
Form doesn't have physical dimension?
Correct. Form does not have any physicality.
This isn't a form?
No, this is the material. Matter. This is the matter.
Form of like a square.
No, it has the shape of a square. It has a shape.
It's an illusion.
The form is the idea, the concept, yeah. The idea.
Yeah, the idea of a table. Right, look at dogs. Right, what's the form of a dog? Not what the shape or size. What is a dog? That's the form of a dog. What is that? What's the form of a canine? No. Okay, we're going to go very far today, Aaron. I can see it. But that's the idea, that there is an essence of an entity. What is the form of a human being? It is not the shape, you take 100 guys, you line them up, and then you ask a Martian, what is the form of a human being? What will they say?
2 legs, 2 arms,
Yeah, what if you put in a guy that has only one leg?
a head.
What?
Some guy who has a head and a torso.
No torso, he's just like this, you know?
A head and a chest.
Yeah. I don't know. Why head and a chest? You know, I don't know. That is, we have to get into the core of what we mean by a human being. Missing arms and legs, it still makes you a human being. People, when you take them to a wing where they have people who are in vegetative states. Are they human beings or not?
It's arguable.
Yeah.
Yes, they are human beings. It's not arguable. Oh, they're not human beings. Yeah, we're like the Nazis. No, come on. No, but they are. So we say, but they don't really have consciousness. Does that mean they're not human beings anymore?
Yeah.
Maybe.
That is what makes us human, right? Soul. Without that,
But they have a soul. I said consciousness. I didn't say so.
isn't that the same thing?
No.
Consciousness in your soul?
No,
I thought it was.
no. Because they don't have, whatever state of consciousness they have, maybe I can be more medaic. Whatever state of consciousness they have, we can't tap into it. They're not communicating with us. That doesn't mean they don't have a soul. Because then they would be dead.
Right, but the soul could have left the body, and the body just kept alive through a machine. Right.
No.
What about the soul leaving the body when you're asleep? This being the soul being trapped.
Somebody who's brain dead.
They still have a soul.
Is there soul in their body?
So
So long as the body is functioning, the soul is there. Even if the body is artificial, the soul is there, connected. And the soul leaves, even if you're connected to him. If you take a corpse,
yeah,
and wait, and you connect it to a machine. Corpse, connected to a machine that will move the lungs, that won't work.
yeah, but the heart's already stopped beating. And before somebody's dead, like they're
Before they're dead, it means they're not dead, which means the neshama is still there. All right, let's stop here. We'll continue tomorrow. Be'ezrat Hashem.